Oh, yes.
Where's Rachel? Where is she? Where'd you... Harvey? Where did you put her? Where did Harvey put Rachel? Hello. Hello. You're watching Nerdish. I lost my shoe. You gotta put your shoe back on. Very good. What are we doing here? Well, we do SAT, ACT prep for everyone. Yes, and the question is not where is Rachel, but when. 8 to 9:30 p.m. That's when Rachel is. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Watch it. Just see what it's like. It's for free. All week long. You can ask us questions like where's Rachel and what you do with Rachel and where is Harvey Dent. They're both studying for the SAT. It's a very important test if you want to go to college or university. Nice. I should have said university first because it rhymes. Oh, that's Catwoman. That's okay. I think we know Catwoman because we're Batmen. Let's do a problem. Yeah. We did exponents last time. What should we do? Let's factor a quadratic. Okay. Man, when it comes to education, I'm an addict. Oh my god, but not that kind of addict. No, just a quadratic addict. I hope this is factorable. Oh, it's gonna be factorable. Add 6. Okay. 6 is for Rachel. Alright. Let's take out a 2. Let's make it equal to 0. That's a good idea. Okay. So let's factor out 2. X squared minus 2. How much time do we have before Rachel explodes? Ask Harvey. Harvey. Multiply to positive 3, add to negative 2. I don't think that's possible. Oh, shoot. That's okay. Sometimes you can't factor quadratics. And sometimes you can't save Rachel. I was about to say that. I'm so sorry. No, it's good. It shows that we're tight bonded, like Tight Bond, original wood glue. It has a tight bond, like me and Levi.
Hey everybody, what's up? I don't know if you can see me or not. Possibly. Brady is not here. Hey Hono. Hello CF Jennings. Hey, yes. Okay, yes, you can see me. Good. Also, that lag is not bad at all. Okay, doing reading stuff. Hey Waldo, how are you? Good evening everybody. Brady's not here tonight. It's just me, so sorry to disappoint, but Brady is not in the city. He is in another city right now. I can't tell you anything else aside from that. Ow. Okay. I was planning on doing some reading stuff. The link I had that I was going to do of Matthew's question is not working on this computer. It was working on my other computer, so that's a little bit frustrating. As I'm sort of trying to think about how to think about that and figure it out. Does anybody else have questions right now? Hono, do you have any questions to put in the chat, or Waldo? Anything you want to talk about? We can talk about math. We can talk about the SAT since it just came out, or the scores. Oh, Hono, how did you do? Was it good? Did you score as well as you felt? I don't know if that's a valid question, but you were severely upset. Okay, what fell short? Hey Matthew. So what were the problems that came up with just everything was... It was a fat oof. Okay. My reading was so bad, like I thought it was bad, but it was worse. Okay. What were the problems? So it was it didn't go well. The reading clearly didn't go well for Hono. Waldo, did the reading go poorly for you as well? And what were the issues? Were the questions just hard? Was it timing? Was it, a specific passage? What was the issue? I'm also about to I thought I did pretty great, so I have no idea. Okay. All right. I'm not. So Matthew, just so you know, for whatever reason on my laptop I can open the link you sent. On this computer I can't. I genuinely don't know why. Where's this stupid mouse? Oh. Sorry, give me a sec. Maybe I can actually figure this out. What? Oh, okay. Sorry, maybe I can. Give me a second. Yes, okay, I did make it work. I hated the first passage. That screwed me. Okay, so let's talk about the first passage. That's actually what Matthew sent. This is the one about Mr. Milson and Henry going to Rye, right? Yeah, no, it wasn't downloading the right way, but now I figured it out. So go away. Okay, so this one, yes? Let me just resize it. Any questions here? No. Okay. Is this fitting everything? Not quite. All right. So let's talk about this stuff. This passage, yeah, it's in the Discord in general if you want to look at it. But this passage, I read it. It's about the Henry goes to Rye. He meets Mr. Milson. He's walking around. Mr. Milson talks to him about houses, and they do some other stuff. So that's basically it. So let's look. These are, Matthew, are these the questions specifically that you got wrong? Because it's skipping around, so I'm assuming you got 3 and 8 are the ones you want to talk about. And did you set this up yourself, or did the SAT give it to you in this format? Also, anybody else who has questions, let me know. This actually should go away. I can do any questions you want from, I guess, the test. If you could send me little screenshots of questions you got wrong, we could talk about those. Also, the premature burial. Okay. Could you help me understand the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Ace chess. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah, all these I got wrong. Great. You made it. Nice. Okay, so you know how to get your money's worth out of this. All right. So let's talk about this. Give me a second. So we have sorry, I really can't read this that well. Which choice most closely captures the literal meaning of the figurative flavors referred to by line 26? You posted one in the math Discord. Okay, I can actually switch between these pretty quickly. So I'll do number 3, and then we'll do, you posted one in the math Discord in hours, Waldo. Can you, that's fine. If it's an hour, it's great. I'll just go, normally just put it in the questions for stream channel. But I guess maybe you put that in earlier and I just missed it. I don't know. So, which choice most closely captures the literal meaning of the figurative flavors in line 26? So this is sort of vocab and context, but let's see how they're using the word flavors in line 26. With this type of thing, what does this thing mean? Don't look at the answer choices. That's giving you ideas, and they're giving you 3 wrong ideas. So you're already possibly going to take the wrong ideas, so don't let them feed it to you before you start creating in your own head what's going on. So line 26, I'm going to read it over here instead of near the screen because I just can't read that well. I can't see that well. Okay, so line 26, it's down here-ish. I'm just going to read the whole paragraph. Henry viewed his conversations with Mr. Milson as a form of play, just as his conversations with fishermen about the sea or with farmers about the harvest were forms of polite relaxation, a way of drinking in England, allowing its flavors to come to him in phrases, turns of speech, and local references. Okay, so I think one of the helpful things here is Oh, you did put it there. Great. Sounds good. I think the pronoun its before flavors will help us because we are trying to use context around. We don't need to know the word flavors. They could put just a blank there, not give us that word at all, and it should still be possible to work it out. Okay? So I'm going to ignore flavors, allowing its blank. So what is its? What noun does that reference? I would think England, right? He's there, he's talking to Mr. Milson, and he sees it the same way that he sees conversations with fishermen about the sea, farmers about the harvest. It's polite relaxation, a way of drinking in England. So he says drinking in England. So So this is an extended metaphor. He's drinking in England. He's not literally drinking England, but he's drinking it in, allowing England's flavors or England's something to come to him in phrases, turns of speech, local references. So it's the way England is, if that makes sense. He's taking in England. He's talking to the fishermen. He's talking to this local resident, Mr. Milson. He's talking to farmers about the harvest. It's England. He's learning about England. He's taking it in, and the flavors are the characteristics of it. Does that extended metaphor make sense? So that's how I see flavors. It's characteristics of England. That's the literal, and literally, I guess it's what he picks up from these phrases in terms of speech and local references. Now, I don't know what the question said. I don't know what the answers are, so I might have been off in how I was interpreting that. But let's see. A is the qualities of an object that serve to make it memorable. Okay, it said qualities. It also said object. I don't really like object because England is not an object, it's a place. And also memorable, that's a little too far away. I like qualities. They say qualities in A, but they say object and they say memories or memorable. Those two things are not really supported, especially memorable. We're not talking about memories here. But maybe A is the right answer, but I don't love it. B, the features of an environment that appeal most directly to the senses. This, I think, is one of those questions that starts great and then goes downhill. Because he says the features, so great features, characteristics, that's what I had said before, of an environment. Okay, England's environment, sure, that appeal most directly to the senses. That is taking the metaphor literally. This is a hard question because they're asking about a metaphor, but they're asking for what does it literally mean? What is he literally talking about here? So he's not talking about what do I sense from England? How does it sound? How does it smell? How does it taste? It's not saying that. He's talking about flavors, but flavors is not talking about senses, literally. Does that idea make sense? So that's how I'm working through A and B. Also, please let me know if you thought about this in a different way or you just think this is a really bad question for some reason or you don't understand questions like this or anything you want to say about this. And we have C, the aspects of a place that give it its particular character. I like that one. Aspects, yes, I said characteristics, I think, at the beginning. Aspects of a place, yes, England is a place, that give it its particular character. Yeah, I think I like that one. It's not particularly specific, and it is supported. He talked about farmers, he talked in harvest, and he talked about fishermen in the sea, talked about, so those are examples, and then talking to Mr. whatever his name was in Rye. I like C, let's leave it alone. And D, we have the characteristics of a locale that account for its popularity. Popularity, I don't like that. Characteristics of a locale, right? Sure. But it does not, we're not talking about its popularity. At no point I don't think in this essay it talks about the popularity of England. It's just that Henry likes it a lot. So I would work through this one and say C. That is my thought on this. Matthew, what did you put for this question? Also, I have a weird hair on my contact lens, which is very annoying. What was your answer for this question, and do you understand why your answer was incorrect? Let me know. And if you don't, I'll just move on to the math question. What was your answer? put A. A is not bad. It's not. I think that B is a pretty, hopefully is a pretty clear trap that you don't want to fall into, because it's taking the metaphor itself literally, which is not quite what you want. A is not a bad answer. I think it's just that memorable is a little bit off. I don't think that object is so bad that it makes the answer wrong. It just makes me skeptical and want something else. But memorable just isn't supported. We don't. You want to take these words really, really seriously. Every word has to be right. So Hona, why did you put B? Did you put it because, did you read all the others and you hated all the others? Or you just had no idea? Or you liked B specifically for some reason? What was your thought process there? I think it just made the most sense. I was debating between C and B, I think. Got it. So yes, it does make sense, and you are like the idea of flavors and then senses, that does make sense for sure. But when you're reading that sentence, it's important to recognize that it is a metaphor, right? He's drinking in England and letting its flavors do something to him. So that's very clear that I mean, if you don't read that previous that previous part, then maybe you're not as aware that it's definitely a metaphor. But in the question, and the question is a little bit confusing. They do talk about the literal meaning, but they say of the figurative flavors. So it's not literal flavors. So I don't like the wording of this question. I think it could just mean, what is the metaphorical meaning of flavors, right? Because then they're being a little bit more straightforward with it. And the beginning of B is good. Features of an environment. But then an appeal most directly, sure, but the senses, it's not about senses, because it's about England, and there is no part of this essay, I don't think that really, or maybe, I'm actually not going to say that because it's probably not true, but it's not really about the senses and how things smell and taste and things like that. That was just the metaphor. It's hard, I'm not going to say that they're impossible to get right, they're just very easy to get wrong. Because it's not like you're putting your own answer. They're giving you possibilities, and all of them are appealing for some reason. All of them will be appealing for some reason. So you made the incorrect connection there. Okay, talked about that one enough. I'm going to go back to the math. Okay. Questions for stream. Waldo, there we go. Oh, that fits very well. Okay. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted. Sorry. I want to be over here. Okay. Is this from May 4 also? Or from that time? Waldo, are you still here? Can we go over the essay later? Because I saw my essay was never perfect to me. Was near perfect. Okay. Sure, we can do that. I'm getting less and less pleased with the essay that they want on the SAT. I actually am not very happy with it. Okay, which of the following is a solution to the equation above? Okay, so Waldo, what was your approach here? I'm just going to rewrite the equation. But how did you go about this question, or did you have no idea? Or did you do it, you thought you got it right, and then you were just wrong? Was there some sort of math that you didn't understand, yada, yada? You understand the question, I'll shut up. Okay, so we have this equation, we need to find the answer choices. For me, I like looking at the answer choices to see where I'm headed. I'm not going to necessarily use these. You could feasibly, we'll talk about that in a second, but looking at these answer choices, B, C, and D all have a radical, and D, very aggressively looks like the result of, quadratic formula, right? When you see stuff in this form, you just skipped and guessed. Okay, sure. So when you see answers in this form, you got to think quadratic formula. That's really what it looks like. So that really helps. There's a lot of math on the SAT There's some math that I'm sure you don't know. But there's most of it you actually do know how to do, you just don't know you're supposed to. So that's probably the case here. Because you looked at it and whatever. Looking at the answer choices can help. So looking at these answer choices, you know, okay, quadratic formula. How do I get to quadratic formula from here? Well, I need it to be ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. And then I can do quadratic formula. So that's how I'm going to put this one. I'm going to subtract this thing and put it on that side. So I'll get 2x squared minus 2x minus 5. Right? Does this make sense? Oh, sorry, wow. Disrespectful. Equals 0. Now we have this and we can do quadratic formula. You could also feasibly factor by grouping. I don't know if that'll work. It doesn't look like it will, really. If you feel like it, you can plug in A. I wouldn't plug in B, C, and D. What if I'm allergic to the quadratic formula? Then, oh my gosh. Look who it is. Brady Teach from another city. Brady, all I told them was that you're in another city. That's all I've said, I swear. But maybe we'll talk about it later. Okay, so with this, let's do quadratic formula. And it doesn't matter if you're allergic. Just take some Claritin or something before the test. We have x equals negative b, so 2, plus or minus the square root. How much room do I have? About that much. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 4, minus 4 times 2 times negative 5. Yeah? All over 2 times 2. So let's simplify. We get x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of, this is going to be 840, but it's negative 40, so 4 minus negative 40 is 44. All over 4. Okay, well, I can sort of see that with the answer choices, that's where that rad 11 is coming from, so I need to reduce this radical 44. I'm going to guess A is wrong. Answer choice A. So we'll get 2 plus 2 rad 11. Excuse me. And we're there. And then we reduce. We get x equals 1 plus or minus rad 11 over 2, which would be D. Because they're asking for a solution, not the solution. This is both solutions. They're just asking for one solution, so the answer is D. Okay, I like English subject better than math. Math is long and confusing. I did not have good math teachers. Yeah, I mean, a lot of how students perform, or so much of how students perform over a long period of time is their teachers. If you have a bad math teacher in 5th grade, you're going to have a bad time. After that, forever. It's going to be harder because the earlier you have trouble or earlier you have bad instruction, the worse it gets. English, at least, I'm good at writing essays and knowing definitions. Good, good. Okay, so there's this approach to this question. Math, not the reading so much, but the writing and the math, and therefore the English and the math on the ACT. It's about recognition. What are you supposed to do? You're obviously not doing sine and cosine stuff here. You're not doing unit circle things. You're not doing triangles. You're not doing any geometry, really. This is straight algebra. They're asking you to solve an equation. There you go. Your answer choices look like the result of quadratic formula. That should set off alarm bells in your head and doing it, even if you're allergic. Does this approach make sense, Waldo? And do you think that you could do this seeing another question like that? Didn't have a good math teacher since 6th to 8th grade because of the school I attended. Had a racist problem, so a lot of substitutes because of the violence of the school. Whoa. Okay, well that's, one of the, just a byproduct of racism, I guess, that isn't even necessarily talked about, although it is, to an extent, is bad education. It hurts kids learning. Waldo, any questions? I'm going to go back to the other test if you don't have any follow-ups here, or if you wait too long to ask. Yeah, okay, no problem. Also, more questions, send them my way. This is super important. Another thing, if you're not looking at the answer choices, just one last thing here. Not looking at the answer choices because I don't know. You don't feel like it. You're choosing to not look, and that's the wrong thing to do. You got to see that you're solving an equation for x. There are a couple of stumbling blocks that people hit when they're solving equations. One of them is, you have radicals and you don't know how to get rid of them, or you have x in the denominator, you don't know how to get it out. Things like that. But in this case, and what you're always trying to do is get x to one side and combine your x terms. If you have 2x plus 3x equals 10, you combine 2 and 3x and you get 5x, right? You just do that, of course. Here, you can't combine your x squared and your 2x, right? You're not going to be able to put them in together. So if you cannot combine all of your x terms, this is the rule. If you cannot combine all of your x terms, you have to factor. That is another way into factoring, another recognition piece. Solving for x or any variable, it doesn't matter. If you can't combine all of your terms into one, you can't solve for it normally, so you have to factor. Okay, that's enough of this. Put more questions in the Discord if you would like. It would make me happier because I know that, I'm happy to go through this test with who was it, Matthew, but also I think I want to help everybody. So ask your questions. If you're just watching and not asking questions, you are not getting enough out of this, and I want you to get more out of this. Obviously, I can't go through an entire study process with you, but if you're doing most of the study process on your own, figuring out what you need to work on, but there are just concepts or approaches that escape you, then come here and ask me those questions so that you can ask follow-up questions, because obviously for a lot of people, spoken word is way better than reading about math or something like that. And obviously reading about approaches to the SAT and ACT is an incredibly dry pursuit. So is teaching it sometimes. Not to bother you, but when can you, just the two stories I mentioned above. When can you please just explain the two stories? It's just, what do you mean by explain the two stories? I don't quite understand what you're asking me to do. Okay. Nope, here we go. Oh. All right, like the premature burial. Oh, sorry. Premature burial. I did read that somewhere, but I have no idea what that was. So, okay, give me a sec, everybody. I'm going to look at what HS is talking about. Oh, I actually don't. I don't know what you're talking about with the premature burial at all. I have no idea what that is. And with the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or vice versa, I actually don't know that story either, so I can't help you on either. Oh, interesting. I can't really help you on that. Also, they're not on the SAT and ACT, so that's not what this stream is for. It's only for these types of questions from the test. So let's do number 8 now. You all can see this, right? Where's my mouse? There we go. Okay, so number 8. This is one of those evidence questions. It's not a 2-part question, but it's basically simpler because they give you the first part. You don't even have to answer a question, and then you just look for evidence. That's all you're doing. So it's just part 1 of that. So I actually like these questions. So we have, which choice best supports the claim that Henry feels that his life has been characterized by a struggle to attain things that he desired? Whoa, that's a lot of information. Definitely break that up to make sure you know exactly what you're being asked. So, which choice best supports the claim? Sure, whatever. Yes, that's what these are. Evidence of the following. Henry, so he's the main character, right, who's walking around, feels that his life has been characterized by a struggle to attain things that he desired, which is a fancy way of saying he thinks his life has been characterized by trying to get stuff he wants, right? What is evidence of Henry thinking that he struggles to get what he wants in life? in general. That's what's being asked. So, let's go back up to the passage when we read lines 45 to 46. Okay. Nothing had ever come easily, magically, like this. That's really short. But I like that, because he's talking about the house that Mr. Milson had recommended or told him about, right? And he says, nothing had ever come so easily. So easily? So he's talking about the past. Nothing had ever come easily, magically like this. So the opposite of that would be everything is hard, which does seem to be a characterization of struggling to get what you want in life. So it's not super clear, but it's saying nothing had ever done this opposite thing before, which means that it could support it. Does that make sense, that idea? I'm not saying that A is right. I'm just saying that I actually sort of can see how it could be evidence of this idea here. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. Next, we have 48 to 52. Okay. 48. 6, 7, 8. Okay. There was no purchase, however, in thinking or regretting or worrying. There was only one solution, and that was to rush to Rye, thus ensuring that no omission on his part could cause him not to become the new inhabitant of Lamb House. I don't know what that has to do with the question. He knew what he had to do. He does say there was no purchase, which means there's no use. There's no use, however, in thinking or regretting or worrying. So there's no point in being worried. The only thing he could do was rush to Rye and make sure that he gets this house that he wants. I think you could assume that his life is hard, he struggles to get what he wants in life because of that, but that's too big of a jump. It's not as clear of a line as in A, in my opinion. Again, let me know if that makes sense. Again, you probably don't want to or need to or whatever. Matthew, are you still here? And is this helping? Like, say if it's helping, if you like this, because I can do this question and hop to others if this is not helping anybody, especially if Matthew's not here anymore. But I will continue this. I just want to help as many people who are watching right now as possible. Just let me know. So I don't like B because it takes too big of a jump to get to supporting the actual information here than does A. Okay, C, 55 to 59. Oh boy, these are not numbered. That's not ideal. What are the letters? Okay, so, but he to disappointing. Okay. Okay, so it's across from line 20, basically, just go across. But he could not wait for Warren, and he certainly could not work. And on the train, he wondered if anyone watching him would know how momentous this journey was for him, how exciting and how potentially disappointing. Okay, so this one again doesn't really answer the question because the question is, it's just A, to me, is very clear. So with these, Matthew, it's about approach. That's why I don't care to explain exactly why all the answers are wrong and why all the answers are right. I want to, in those explanations that are relatively short, hopefully, demonstrate how you should be approaching these. These are hard questions. These evidence questions are hard, but there is the approach, and that is know exactly what you're trying to give evidence for. Okay? Exactly, and it has to be the most obvious evidence for the idea that Henry thinks his life is characterized by struggling to get what he wants. Okay? It's not super obvious that A is the right answer, but that is exactly what you're looking for. You don't have to say, okay, I got to read this whole thing and see, okay, did I get that? No, you're looking specifically for his whole life is characterized by this thing, and then you have a sentence that said, this new thing, nothing had ever come as easily as that. So it's got to be looking for that on a very specific level. It takes practice. That's really what it is. But yeah, the correct answers do make sense. But also, some of the wrong answers do make sense if you're not paying enough attention, or if it's a really hard question, which many of these are. Okay. D. Well, okay, so I think you understand the approach for this one. I'm guessing the answer is A. It's probably not a great thing to do, to not look at D, but A did seem pretty good. They like to do that. They like to ask a question, and then the evidence for it isn't saying, yes, here we go. They're not going to say, Henry literally says to Mr. Milson, my life is characterized by a struggle to get what I want. He's not going to say that. Of course he's not going to say that. They're asking, so you have to be on the lookout for things that show that. And you have to do a little bit of work there. I choose C. The answer is A. Okay. Do I ever get bored of trig? Neo-Socratic. Do you ever get bored of trig? I don't. You know, I have never considered that, so I guess not. I have never gotten bored of trig, but I also don't do enough of it all the time to get bored. I'm not a trig teacher. I teach it, but people move through. There's a lot of stuff in trig. Your job, yeah, I know that, but I just don't do that piece all the time so that I get bored. You took it once, good. Yeah, I think I took trig once in high school. Okay, so Ring Matthews, does the approach for number 8 make sense? When you're watching me go through these questions, do not, obviously learning exactly why I put the answer, you know, I think A is the correct answer here, and what was it, C is the correct answer up here. Obviously that doesn't matter because you're never going to see these questions again, but you will see the question types, and you want to model the way you approach these questions as closely to me as closely to the way that I do as possible. Not because that's going to be the perfect way for you, but I think it's a good way, and I've taught a lot of people, and it seems to help a lot of people. So you're going to figure out exactly the best way for you, and sometimes you can't be super specific because you don't have time or you hate it, whatever it is. But that should be the approach. You want to be specific. You want to be proving things wrong. You want to cross out words in answer choices that you don't like, circle words in answer choices that you do like. That is what you're trying to learn from this stream, not why this question is, why C is correct. It's not what you're doing. Honestly, I took your approach on the entire test. I thought it was working. I just think I'm doomed now. Got it. Okay, so I disagree with you. Just because you did poorly doesn't mean that you're doomed, of course. I think everybody knows that. Maybe you don't tell yourself that, obviously. Keep going. That is the only thing to do, really. And yes, there is a lot of stuff. Obviously, the SAT is not the be-all and end-all. If people tell you it is, then they're wrong. And it doesn't matter if that's your parents or your friends or not your friends or me. If I ever say that, then I don't know. Find me and kill me because that's wrong. It's not the most important thing. But it's one of the main. It's what you're working on right now. You can't just keep going, and the approach is useful. I'm sure that you wouldn't have done it if you didn't think it helped. So it is helping. Keep going. Keep practicing it. Just because it's the right thing and you feel good about it doesn't mean that it's going to pay dividends right now. It's kind of how things are in general. But keep that in mind. Just keep working on it. Let's see. Do we have... Okay. I think we have no other questions at the moment, so I can keep going here. Does anybody else want me to do anything? Doesn't have to be from the most recent test. It can be on the ACT. It can be a general question about the tests or approaches. It can be, what's trig? Leo, don't ask that question, but something like that. I actually don't know how I'd answer that question. What is trig? It's short for trigonometry, and it's triangles, right? Something like that. So Hono, with that, of course there's a time to to call it quits, pack your bags, and move on and focus on other things. That's true. Making triangles from a circle. I don't know what that means. So clarify. I mean, I can guess, but give me a question or something. Maybe you should be done with the SAT, and that's fine. What number SAT was this for you? Was this your first or second or third or 10th or what? Oh, I understand. Your first one. Okay. I have seen very few students who prepped a lot for the SAT, took the first one and said, awesome, and then stopped. One of my students last year, a private student, I worked with her a bunch. She didn't do very well on the first SAT, but couldn't keep paying for private sessions, so she worked on her own and did significantly better on her second one. And that's not because I'm a bad tutor. It's not, I promise. It's because it was the first one. The first one's hard. You don't know what's going on. Maybe you felt good, but most people feel really bad on their first SAT, and they're making mistakes. So maybe you missed the thing that made you feel bad, which is good. Like it's great to feel good, but the first SAT is the first SAT. Okay, you can do it again, and I think you should. If that's your first one, you've been prepping for a while, give it another shot. See how it goes. So yes, him struggling to buy a house would show that, he works hard to get things he wants. Yes. But this question specifically supports the claim that Henry feels that his life has been characterized by a struggle. So it's not saying that, it's not questioning, how do I want to word this? It's not saying what of these answer choices is good evidence that Henry has to struggle for what he wants. We're not finding evidence that Henry struggles for what he wants. Then C would be good, because it's an example of that. We want evidence that supports the claim that Henry feels that his life is characterized in general by a struggle to attain what he desires. So when he is thinking and talking, and he's saying nothing has ever come so easily before, that is a more generalizable thing, and therefore better evidence. Yeah, okay. So I know I can talk too long about these things. So Hono, I forget if this was you. I don't think it was, but maybe I'm wrong. Were you the one who came back and said you've been reading a bunch and it's definitely helped your reading comprehension? Just in general? Just reading things? Because that would be my recommendation. Because you've watched and you've learned a lot about how to go through this test, but the foundation for this is being good, having a higher level of reading comprehension. And if you think that's the problem, then that's the problem you want to tackle. And then it's probably better for you. I mean, I think you should still watch this stream because it helps. But I'm not teaching reading comprehension. I'm teaching how to focus your reading comprehension and what things you should be thinking about to try to comprehend, and pattern recognition of all the sections, things like that. But reading comprehension is best improved by reading a lot. If you read 30 minutes a day, an hour a day, maybe even instead of the stream, but reading will help you so much. So much. Not BS stuff, but read and read. That's the thing. I can't even read long pieces without understanding anything. I read things in parts very slowly. Okay. Maybe see if you qualify for an IEP if you're a really slow. Listening to audiobooks, it does help with comprehension. It does not help with grammar and punctuation at all. It sometimes makes it worse because you hear things in a certain way and you don't realize they're written that way. So when you see them written, you're unable to associate those things with what you already know. So it doesn't help on the English section very much at all. It doesn't hurt, but if you are prepping for the SAT or ACT, also hi Samuel, then I would recommend reading. reading. Like today I had to reread a chapter 5 times to understand, and that's why I have extra time. Okay, so you do get extra time. Pick some John Locke's. Isn't there an E in John Locke? Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong John Locke. If you're a slow reader, you're a slow reader. If you're not understanding what you're reading as you read it, then you got to slow down. It's possible you're dyslexic. That might be a problem. My mom is dyslexic. My brother's dyslexic. I don't know if you can be slightly dyslexic. I don't know if it's a spectrum thing or it's just... I don't... But read slower. That's all I can tell you. Read slower. Read simpler things. It's not a problem to read things that are simple. I'm sure if you read a children's book, you'd understand every word the first time. Right? And that's not supposed to be an insult, but start maybe at a slightly lower level than you ultimately want to achieve, and work your way up. ADD does make it harder for sure. In that case, I've talked about this before. Try to make these reading sections logic puzzles. Okay, that sometimes helps people who have trouble focusing for long periods of time on the same thing. Jump around. Maybe try. I don't teach this much because I hate this approach, but it might be able to work. Read the question or look at the questions first, and mark on the passage where those questions are asking about stuff. And then as you read, you can answer them, and then you're moving around a little bit more and building up your intuition in a more logical fashion, since math is a little bit easier for you. Make it as logical as possible. Make it not so much of a reading a big thing and then understanding it fully the first time and then answering questions. Okay, I have trouble understanding the antiquated passages. That's because they're harder. That totally makes sense, and that's fine. To work on those, read more antiquated stuff. Antiquated stuff, if you're at a solid reading level with modern texts and you go to less modern texts, your reading comprehension does improve actually pretty quickly. You just need to read those things more, because there are just turns of phrases, but there aren't that many that have gone out of style that you don't know, so you actually do pick up on them pretty quickly. Usually what helps me is doing the questions that ask about the passage and force you to go back. Yeah, the very literal questions. The answer choices also give hints about what is happening. That's very true, very true. Just make sure you're not being led astray by answer choices. What test has antiquated passages? The reading sections often have slightly older texts. I don't know, is it in here? Do we have one here? This passage was not that antiquated. No. Oh yeah, this I think on the right here. We got a bit of one because it's from what year? 1940s, 1950s? Yeah, so this one's older. Harder to understand for sure. Yeah, antiquated might be a little bit strong for a lot of them, but so Ring Matthews, is something like passage 1 over here, is that problematic for you, or is this type of thing fine? So that was fine. Okay, so was there another one that was hard? What do we got here? No. Yeah, the science passages are almost never antiquated. I don't think I've ever seen them. Okay. Do we have... Yeah, so what they'll have an old Englishy type passage often, but then they also throw around where the hardest passage is. Not the hardest questions necessarily, but they just follow along with how difficult it is to understand the passage. But yeah, they move around the difficulty. What was the hardest passage of these? Do you remember? We can go over these more. Do you want to keep going through this passage, or do you want to just talk about stuff in general? I'm happy to do either. I really don't mind. Or are there other things that people want to ask? Have there been any questions in the Discord? Sorry. My brother texted me about the stream. Hardest. Either the rye... Yeah, the rye seemed hard. Matthew, I thought you said the paired passage was easy. Jesus was a try hard. I feel like the AP language MCOs are much easier than the SAT reading. Like the English lit and whatever, that one, lit and composition. Whatever you want. You skipped it. Okay. Oh, my Milanos are gone. Okay. Really? What is that? The passages that are easier on the AP tests? Because I seldom do AP tests. Or is it the is it the questions that are just weird on the SAT normal? Questions or passages? Don't say yes, don't say no, say passages or questions. Okay, the questions are easier. Yeah, sometimes they're more straightforward. I would agree with that. It's harder to understand what's happening there. It's higher level concepts, but they're not messing with you so much. Maybe that's true. Are you all... Oh yeah, AP tests you just take once. Right, I forgot about that. I got a 3 on the history AP exam. I was pretty upset with that because I'm terrible at history. That's not why. I chose to not like it, and then I chose to not work hard, and then I did poorly, and it made sense. Did poorly for how I should have done, I think. Okay, so I'm happy. Should I keep going through this stuff, or does anybody have other questions? I can keep doing this though. These are all out of whack. Yes, please, if nobody has other questions. It seems like nobody's asking other questions, so I'm happy to keep going through. This, okay, 21. Okay, so this is the water stuff in Colombia, right? And they're Colombia. They're trying to fix the water situation, and they tried a couple different things, yeah? Okay, so 21. According to the... number 11. Let's do this, yeah? Yeah, also, I'm happy for everybody to watch me tutoring Matthews. Totally happy to do it, but ask your own questions. It will probably help you more than just looking at this stuff. Also, this was in the general channel of our Discord if you want to get the link to this. Or you can find it by Googling it, I'm sure. Give me a sec. I'm going to read this also in my head. Okay, I'm not going to do 11 first because we have 11 and 14 and 21, and 11 is the main purpose. So I don't like that. It's too big. Let's go to the other ones. Come back to that big idea later. The passage implies that the city's first... So now we're down here. Sorry, down here. The passage implies that the city's first attempt to address the water shortage was inadequate in that it failed to... something. Okay, definitely a detailed question, right? The passage, well, no, sorry, it's an inference question because they said implies. Okay. The city's first attempt, was this a two-part question or no? Could you, Matthew, could you double check if this was a two-part question? Because I don't want to go about it the wrong way if number 15 was evidence. It's not. Okay, all right. That makes it harder. I like two-part questions for that reason because you just look at the answers. So, the passage implies that the city's first attempt to address the water shortage was inadequate in that it failed to apply conservation measures consistently across all neighborhoods. No, I don't think it implied to do that because no part of the passage was saying, well, they tried this thing here and this thing here and this thing here, and it wasn't consistent, so it didn't work. I think A is wrong. I would cross out consistently, or I would cross out all neighborhoods, because neither of those things are supported in the passage. Does that idea make sense for A? Cool. B, explain to residents how to make the best use of the new information. I want to go back up because I don't quite remember. I think it was the first. Yeah, first and second paragraph talked about what they did. Oh, sorry, I need to move this up a little. All right. So there was a problem, and at the end, so line 5, 6, 7, 70% of the city would be left without water if the wasn't. So the city's strategy was based. Oh, sorry. So the strategy was before. Line 4. Yeah, line 4. The city government declared a public emergency and initiated a communication program to warn inhabitants of the threat of a crisis. This is the crisis. Sure, great. City strategy was based on the assumption that if individuals were informed of the situation, they would adjust their behavior and reduce usage. After all, no one wants to be without water. Great. But the assumption was wrong. In fact, the city's strategy increased water consumption. Many people did not change their behavior. Okay, so that's a tough thing to infer from that. So they don't tell us necessarily what's wrong. They tell us what they did in this part here, right? Sorry, I'm looking down here. I wish I could read the screen nearer the camera, but these words are pretty small. So they tell us there was a problem with the water. They informed people and said that should make them use less, but then people used more. They didn't tell us exactly why all these things happened, right? They told us sort of a result here. So it's hard to imply from that or infer from that, but they told us what worked later, right? What was their second attempt at this, and did it work? Or it did work, and what did they do specifically? Oh yeah, lines 29 to 31. Second, the city government launched engaging and entertaining campaigns to teach individuals the most effective techniques for household water conservation. Okay, so that's one thing they did. And then, okay, so I actually like that. That was one of the things that worked in the secondary approach, or second approach that they took, where they said, this is how you do it. But the first one didn't say that. So I actually think that in number 14, maybe explain to residents how they make the best use of new information. That didn't happen the first time, and the first time failed. So that's not bad. And that would be an inference, right? Because they don't say, because we're not looking for something that says it failed because they didn't do this, or it failed because they did this, because it's asking for an inference. So it failed. Second time they tried this and it worked. That doesn't allow you to, it does allow you to infer that they didn't do it and that's why it didn't work. So I like B, maybe. C, establish a mechanism by which residents could demonstrate their compliance. That's not bad. Did you put that one? That actually seems similar, because I think the third thing they did for this next approach was they publicized information about who was cooperating and who was not. So they awarded households with exceptional water savings. Then they got mad at squanderers. Okay, so that's actually another positive thing. I think the mechanism is the same in both situations. Use less water. Not quite. So the mechanism in C they're talking about here is they're saying some way for people to demonstrate what they want. The way they promoted it, information was different. Not quite. They're not giving people a mechanism by which to save water. They're saying a mechanism by which residents would demonstrate that they are complying. So it's saying sort of, I like C, because it does say, because they're rewarding people who do a good job, and they're they're sanctioning people, making them take extra classes or whatever, people who aren't doing a good job saving water. So that is what they did the second time. So I like C. I'm not sure why I was wrong. We'll think about it. D, instruct residents about the long-term dangers of the situation at hand. No, they did that the first time. They didn't. I think instruct is a bit strong, but they did say, this is going to be what happens if you don't save water. And they thought that would work. It didn't. So D is out. So we are between B and C. Establish a mechanism by which residents would demonstrate their compliance, or explain to residents how to make best use of the new information. I think C is a little bit off in that they don't quite say this is how you can demonstrate your compliance. They just punish people who don't comply well, and they reward people who do. It's not necessarily a mechanism that allows people to show what they're doing, like some sort of leaderboard or competition. So there's a slight difference there. Yes, they are weirdly worded. So do you not like by which? Is that the problem there? Because I can help you with that. So they say by which because they don't want to end this sentence with a preposition. Because we might say establish a mechanism that residents would demonstrate their compliance by or compliance through. So if you want to understand this better, you could invert it and say residents would demonstrate their compliance by some mechanism. I think B was just really vague. Yes, it was vague. And so the SAT does this. They're not going to give you necessarily the perfect answer. They're going to give you 4 answers, and you are supposed to pick the best one. So ideally, you have an answer that is specific and accurate and, I don't know, all-encompassing. But a lot of the times, you don't get all those things. It's just not a terrible answer. It is vague. In this case, B is vague. They just give information. Sure. And that's why you don't get rid of it the first time through, and that's why the approach needs to be eliminating answers. Hono, if you're still here, but everybody, when you're eliminating answers, it does help, I promise you. Just because you're still, not performing up to the level that you expect of yourself or hope for yourself, by eliminating answers and then practicing that, you will just get better at this, and you will be able to eliminate answers for reasons that are a little bit more minute than where you're able to do that now. So just keep going. Just keep working on it. It will get better. Okay, so that was 14. Were there any other questions in the Discord? No. Okay. Wow, I'm not used to Brady not being here, and now I'm losing my voice. Oh, a data question. I like it. Okay, I can't. Yeah, here we go. Number 21, and then we'll go back to number 11 down here. So we have, according to the data presented in the figure. So this is a data question. Great. That means we probably don't need to worry about the passage. We just need to understand this data. Water demand in Bogota is best described as having what? Okay. So with these, you can sometimes read the answers first because it doesn't actually give you any information in the question. It tells you look at the table or graph or whatever, and then it said. It is talking about water demand in Bogota, right? Water demand in Bogota is best described as, well, that's very vague. How do we describe the water demand in Bogota? Let's look at the answer choices. Dropped considerably during this time, risen dramatically, declined steadily, remained stable. Okay, so what happens to this? And now let's look at the table or the graph here. It looks like, it goes up and down and a little up and then down and then up, yeah? So now we're just going to see which of these answer choices is true. Now let's double check first, actually, sorry, I'm gonna back up. Let's make sure we understand this table, or graph. I think I'm seeing a pattern with my wrong answers. I choose semi-good answers and move on when there's
Matthew, are you not reading all the answer choices? Are you not reading all of them? Are you not proving 3 wrong? If you're not proving 3 wrong, that's the fix, or that's the next step for sure. I'm beside myself. Is that true? Are you just not looking at everything? You're glancing at things? Tell me. Waiting. I think I briefly glance over them, but I'm rushing. Ugh, don't do that. Okay, true, fine. But in your practice, you want to practice accuracy now, okay? So you know that you got to rush to finish in time. I don't know, did you finish in time? Did you have too much extra time? Answer those questions in a sec. Don't just say yes, just tell me. When you're practicing, you want to practice accuracy. Do not practice rushing until the last week or so before the test. Are you taking the June test, or are you not doing that quick of a turnaround? I recommend against it generally, but if you want to get it out of the way, sure. Yeah, so finishing with 3 minutes, that's actually pretty good. That means you're using your time pretty well. You are taking June. Okay, so you know how to rush. Great. If you don't feel good about how you did on the reading section, then what you should be doing until you take the test is approaching them the right way. Prove 3 wrong every time. Now, if you feel like running out of time, you're like, oh, this is a really hard question, I'm not sure I can prove 3 wrong, then, work through it, prove 1 or 2 wrong that you're like, okay, that's obviously wrong, get it out of there, but I'm not sure, so I'll just put in 1 answer, and then if I have time, I'll go back. If you want to do it that way, fine. But where you should be saving time is not glancing and picking an answer that you like. Don't do that. You should not be picking answers that you like first. You should be picking answers that you don't like, crossing things out, and then choosing what's left over, hopefully. That's why whenever I pick, if I like answer choice A, I do not pick it. I look at B, and I look at C, and I look at D every time. So in your practice, you really want to do that because you'll get better at it. You don't want to be practicing a timed section every single time, because then you're working against time and you're not. It's like, I don't know if you work out, but like if you I don't know, if you play football, like I obviously didn't. You're not gonna always play at 100% game whatever. You're gonna do push-ups. And then you're going to do a lot more push-ups than you would ever need to do, not that you do push-ups in football, but you work out the little muscles, right? The accuracy muscle and the approach muscle needs to be worked out on its own without time constraints. You add in time constraints at the end. The test will take care of that. That was enough of this. Okay, do you want me to go over number 21, or do you think it's easy? Now, let's see why A is wrong, I guess. Dropped considerably during 1999 to 2002. Yeah, I guess it did drop considerably, but it also sort of went up. So I don't love it. Maybe it is the right answer, but then C, right? C is declined steadily from 2002 to 2004. Yeah, that's way better. That's, pure and correct instead of A, which is meh. I know I talked your ear off about that. I know that was a lot, but practice accuracy. That is the first thing you need to practice, and the thing you need to practice most consistently. Add in time sometimes. But if you're not practicing the right approach and you're just practicing rushing, that's all you're doing. And then you're not able to... What you're doing wrong is not getting fixed in your practice. Your practice needs to be the ideal approach. Also, I'll move on in a sec. I can do number 11 if you want me to. Let me just talk about this. This is Alta Ipsum. Alta Ipsum allows you to, it's an app. It's free for the first month, so maybe you should try it. They're a sponsor. They're very nice people. You can download this and you can put in your schedule. You can put in your classes. You can put in when you have tests and quizzes and essays, and it'll set up study schedules for you. So it can plan. You can use it to help you organize your life and plan it out so that you don't have to stress It's like it's a big glorified list thing that's really smart. Try it. It might help. It might not, but it's free, so it's like checking out Nerdish. It's, maybe you hate it and then go away. But if you're here, you like it, so, yeah. Okay. Nobody's talking, so I'm happy to keep going. Let me just check the Discord. No Discord. Okay. Let's continue. Matthew, are you still here? Hono, are you still here? Do you have anything? Can we go over the essay? Yeah, we can go over the essay. Matthew, I don't think you attached it. What was the essay? Or can someone send me a photo of it? Great, thank you. Hono is sending the essay. That's good. I'll leave that up. Is that what I want? No, I want this. Okay. You got disconnected for a bit. Okay, well, cool. Glad you're still here. I'm waiting for Hono to send something in, but if anybody else has questions in the meantime, please ask me. They can be short, long, whatever. Don't care. Yeah, wait, something happened. What happened? Nothing. Nothing has happened. How's everybody doing, by the way? I guess most of the people here are prepping for the SAT in June, right? Because you're trying to get it done before the end of the school year, before the end of junior year, right? Probably. And then you're moving on to college application stuff. Those things. There we go. Oh boy, let's see how this opens. Why does it do that? Open with. Give me a sec. Why does it? Oh, what? That's not what I wanted. Give me a moment. Oh, you both did it. Oh, this is your actual essay. Wait, let me see this situation. So it's a PDF. Yeah, there we go. Where's my darn mouse? Oh boy, okay. So how'd you do on this? Does it say what were the issues, supposedly? Yeah, where were, you don't have to say the exact numbers, Hono, if you don't want, but what were the problems? I'm just gonna, as you answer those questions, I'm just gonna read this real quick, the stuff. Analysis was your problem. Yeah, you do have nice handwriting, Hono. Okay. Okay, so it's called allow video cameras in the courtroom. Yeah, so that's okay. I think I get it. Yeah, sure. What does that say? Alongside many, Megan McHugh is restricted from... Oh boy. I'm not very good with cursive, but I don't really care about your intro is my guess. I want your thesis first. So explain how the rhetorical passages, strategies, either one, influence the audience, or two, achieve the purpose. So, in order to appeal to the audience, I'm reading the first body paragraph. McHugh, oh boy, I'm really sorry. I don't... Hones her argument? Something her argument by using personal stories or something. This appeals to her, her diction choice of... Oh boy. Yeah. No, I'm not saying you have bad handwriting or that your writing is hard to read. I just can't read it because I never read cursive ever. Also, maybe because it's pixelated on my screen. I don't know. I'm sorry. Can the rest of you read it? Can someone? I don't know. Sure, I could reason it out if I had a little more time. Read it on this computer. Maybe that'll help. This appeals to her diction choice of using me to allow people to realize that she holds the same concerns, establishing the idea to listen to her point of view. Okay, all right. She builds this credibility when establishing she is a journalist herself, providing more information to her purpose for writing this. This allows the majority of readers to empathize with McHugh when she utilizes logos to build parallelism. I'm sorry, I do not mean to read this like you're stupid. I'm reading it like I'm stupid because I clearly... You did use established a lot, so that's a good thing to note. Don't do that too much anymore. Okay, I don't quite understand this analysis, this part of it. You say that she builds a credibility, sure, and then she establishes parallelism of priorities between the people and the Supreme Court. Honestly, a lot of my lack of understanding is just reading it so piecemeal is not working for my brain, but I don't quite understand what why the parallelism is between the people and the court necessarily. I would think that because you're saying that she's telling it from a personal point of view, she says me, that she's trying to establish parallelism between her audience and herself, but I might be missing the point there. I was trying to say that that in the passage that she says what the audience wants and the Supreme Court to directly contrast them. I'm not sure what you just wrote, what that means. Either. But in the passage that she says what the audience wants. Okay. I don't understand that idea, but maybe I am missing something. I didn't read it super closely. Just curious, where can I get help for the stories I mentioned earlier? I don't know. To be honest, I'm not sure. If you're looking for free help, I don't know. Because something that's specific for what you're asking about. You could Google, Spark Notes and summary of the stories. That might help. Not that I'm telling you to necessarily do that. I would recommend just reading them more and trying to understand them. But there are resources that do give more insight into famous classics like Jekyll and Hyde stuff. Were they SAT reading passages? No, they weren't. I'm pretty sure. Maybe they were, but I don't think so. Okay, so I failed this body paragraph. Let me try another one. Maybe I will be able to help more with that one. Okay. Oh, this is still the same paragraph. All right. McHugh was strong logical choices. Oh, uses. That does not look like uses. Okay, okay. In my defense, that looks like was, not uses. But whatever. McHugh uses strong logical choices to promote change in the courtroom. Strong logical choices. Okay, so that's what she's doing. Strong logical choices. For example, when she informally reminisces, right? Reminisces with the reader to remember Fox News, that stuff, okay? By using personal word choice and diction of something, it allows the syntactical. Just reading in my head. Okay, fine. Oh no. I'm really sorry. I'm having so much trouble reading this. I genuinely don't know exactly what the points are that you're trying to make. My guess is they're not super clear. If you can write up real quick exactly if you had 3 body paragraphs, what the 3 things she did were that furthered her argument, then let me know. It's not 100%. Let's look at this again. Let's look at it again. That says was. I see no S. That's just a da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah. Whatever. What's your thesis, by the way? I think syntax and diction choices. I wrote that she logically treats the reader like another person or friend to get on their side. Was that the whole essay or is that one body paragraph? Because I would recommend using that as only one body paragraph. That's one tactic. Right? That's one rhetorical device. I don't know. It's kind of the first into the second. Okay. I don't think you should do kind of the first into the second. I think before you write, you should have at least 2, ideally 3 things that she does, and those are the 3 things. I learned to divide my essay in parts of the story. Okay. This is not a story, though, technically. The prompt, I don't want to totally mess with your essay writing because they don't care about that necessarily, as long as it's clear what you're arguing. You do need to be arguing that you need to explain how McHugh builds an argument to persuade her audience. So you can start out with, she talks about herself first. But you can't use the same, you can't reference the same rhetorical device in the beginning and the middle and expect that to be counted as 2 different things. That's the same rhetorical device, just used twice. So since they're asking for, they want analyze how McHugh uses one or more of the features listed in the box above. Okay. Yeah. Dividing up your essay based on beginning, middle, and end of the given story is not something I would personally recommend. I kind of tried to play parallelism and diction into the reasoning of how she places her arguments together. I don't know what that means. Because I feel like there's a lot of diluting of these ideas together. So she creates this logical idea of parallelism to say, well, if you agree with this, then if you agree with this and you agree these things are parallel, then you agree with the second one, maybe. And diction, what that shows, and then maybe you could have this idea of this is how she orders her arguments, and that is a good order because of X, Y, and Z. Like, that's a good order because it does this, and it builds up to this idea so they're ready to accept it. That's another whole piece, right? That's separate. I don't think I'm doing a particularly good job explaining it. I think because I don't fully understand. Okay, so no, like the way she argues for the people is the same for arguing for the Supreme Court. I'm not. I think she's saying people say this, but then they had the one Supreme Court person who said they had a couple things, right? There was some people said that it would become a performance. I don't know if you're saying that's arguing for the Supreme Court, or you're saying that one justice said it would be good for little girls to grow up and see that. This is hard to do. I've never actually gone through an essay like this on stream before. But I am a little bit confused. Okay. Yeah, I don't know where the shortcoming is, either in the argument itself or me just not getting it. I don't know. But if I have time tomorrow, I'll take a look at this and see if I can figure out what you're trying to say, and read it. It also says was. It definitely says was. Just saying. Look at this. Also, did anybody have any last minute question we can talk about? that so clearly says was Hono. So clearly. McHugh was strong. Yeah, but that's not an S. That's just another doop doop. There's no S deal. You have an S at the end for sure, but the first S doesn't look like that. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Okay. There's some grammar questions in your PDF. Okay, yeah, let's do that. If I get the chance to look at Hono's, Eric, I will. Or sorry, not Eric, Matthew. I will also try to take a look at yours. Grammar questions, huh? Okay. Ooh, you want to do 22? This one's hard. These are, let's do this. Okay, so, I can't read that, okay. So just looking at the answer choices, we have no change, whatever. Then those of, then as that of, compared with, and then A is then as. So to me, this jumps out as a comparators question, right? We're making a comparison and we have to make the right one. We have to use the same parts of speech. So for example, I like brownies more than her, and I like brownies more than she. So this is just a basic example. This question is way harder, but that's fine. I like brownies more than her. What are the two things we're comparing? Sorry, did you do 17 already? No, I did not. I didn't do 17. I just skipped to 22 because I don't have a ton of time. I don't have... Yeah, I can only do 22. But tomorrow I can do 17. Just remind me. Brownies and her, exactly. Brownies and her. That's not what maybe that's what we want to say, but probably not. This was saying that I like brownies this much and I like her this much. That's not what we want. We want to say I like brownies more than she does. And the part of speech here matters. She is a subject, right? Her is an object. So you're comparing the two objects of the sentence in this one. And here, because this is a subject, that's the part of speech it is, you're comparing it to this subject, I. You're not comparing it to brownies. I like brownies more than she does. I like brownies more than her. That's the difference. So we want to make sure that, so when you realize you're doing a comparisons question, which 22 I hope is clear that it is. Maybe not, you just think, oh, it's word choice. Well, the idea here is all context, and that's what we want. So when you read this, you want to say, okay, what do I think they're supposed to be comparing? Just in my head, what do I understand the comparison to be? And then I need to make sure I'm doing the same pieces of the ideas as the comparison. So let's read this. This is a long sentence. Yep. Although many modern critics do not share Johnson's hostility toward Macpherson, Johnson was ultimately correct. Okay, whatever. I don't care about the first part. Johnson was correct in thinking that poems such as Fingal and Timora are better understood as the work of an 18th century poet than as a 3rd century one. Okay. So we're saying these two words. So Johnson says we need to understand this stuff. These poems are better understood as the work of an 18th century poem versus the work of a 3rd century poet. Sorry, not poem, poet. So the work of this poet or this poet. We want to compare the poets, right? Or the work of the poets. One of those two things. Is better understood, or are better understood as the work of an 18th century poet than as a 3rd century one. So in A, I think we are comparing the work of an 18th century poet, that is the noun there, right? That's the object. The work of an 18th century poet versus a 3rd century one. No, that's comparing the work of somebody to somebody, right? The work of a poet versus just a poet. We want to compare because we're saying we are understanding these poems as something or something else. So the work of somebody, the work of something else. So I don't like A. B is better. We're talking about work. So understand it better as the work of an 18th century poet than those of a 3rd century one. Close but no cigar because those is plural. Work is singular. So it's the work of this and the work, or then you want that, not those. So I don't like B, but I do like C. So and then the comparison is as that instead of just that, but that's fine. So we have these poems are better understood as the work of an 18th century poet than as that of a 3rd century one. I like C. I don't like D because we already have a comparison implied. We don't want to say compared with, because then we're comparing the wrong thing. This is a really hard one. Comparisons are hard. Try to figure out in context what you should be comparing. We're comparing the poems as the work of somebody versus the work of somebody else. It's hard. I understand this. Okay, I gotta go. We can keep working through these. Yeah, I'm sorry, that explanation is not the most beautiful thing. These do take some idiomatic understanding, but B is wrong because it says those, and that's being compared to work, which is singular. You want to keep the parallel relationship there. Her and she, that's easier. This is a very, very hard one. Okay. Have a good night, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Brady will be back, and we will discuss more things.